Okay, we are live, and today we are going to talk about the upcoming very long geomagnetic storm that we have ahead of us at the beginning of December, because the sun recently launched two very large plasma filaments our way. We can see them here in this NOAA model. There's the first one, there's the second one, and they impact the Earth on the 30th and then on the 1st of December according to this model. So we're also going to look at the sun, what's been happening recently. We're going to look at the NASA models for this. We're going to look at total solar irradiance, well, at least extreme ultraviolet irradiance for the past few months, to talk about how the sun has been changing in regards to its energy output. But we're going to talk about all this in context of mental health, because when there's heightened energy flux on our planet, there can be an increase in just your mental energies. This can create ripples through your emotional body and bring up a lot of emotions too. But in general, you can be very, very overactive with your thoughts. This can trigger anxiety, restlessness. It really just puts like a big amplifier on everything. And of course, this is individual. It's not always the case. Some people experience brain fog and a lot of fatigue, so they're down and out during a geomagnetic storm. Some people don't feel it that much at all because they're not sensitive. But in general, I find that during these energy intense events like a full moon, which we just had yesterday, and we're still in that flow, actually the full moon will be exiting the magnetotail around the same time as these impacts, which will trigger greater energy flux in the magnetotail. And also these solar storms and geophysical energy bursts like in the Schumann resonances, all this can trigger the mental energy. So it can be more difficult to keep your mental space clean and clear and harmonious. But these increased energies also present an opportunity to reformat your default mode network. So we're going to talk about the brain, the default mode network, and some different strategies and supplements you can use to improve your ability to amplify your ability to kind of reformat that, so you don't have these overactive thought forms that are kind of getting away from you. So yeah, here's what the sun just recently launched out. There's that first plasma filament right there. You can see the plasma density is not as high, but still, you know, it's an increase. It's the difference from what it was before that matters. So it's a big plasma density increase, and then that kind of shakes it up, and then all of a sudden we get a very strong spike in the plasma density there with this second impact. And that's not even direct according to this model. It's just hitting the edge. This is added on top of a coronal hole that's opening up. So this coronal hole will emit a high-speed stream. It's an area of open flux. And as a result, it pushes a lot of highly energetic ions into interplanetary space. And this coronal hole that we see opening up here is in the southern hemisphere, but it is fairly equatorial. It's not like at the very bottom of the pole. So it will emit a very large high-speed stream that will buffet the Earth. And that takes typically a few days to go from when it's Earth direct to when it hits us. So this is going to be Earth direct just in a day or two. And of course, it's already emitting a high-speed stream as it opens up. And so this is then going to buffet the Earth with a high-speed stream, very likely after those two plasma filament impacts. Those are going to hit Earth first, and then this will follow right afterwards. That's why I say this is going to be a very long geomagnetic storm. It may last for 48 hours, perhaps. Who knows? It may last longer. But that then is what really builds these and amplifies these effects in terms of mental health and rumination and everything, is that when you have these heightened energy fluxes for so long, it can really stack and build and just keep certain thought patterns going and going and going and going and going. And you're like, enough of this, let's stop. So I'm going to provide you some solutions for that, or at least some things that you can do to help reformat your brain during this process, because these heightened geophysical energies actually present a really good opportunity to reformat your brain. And I had that personal experience last night with the full moon. I feel like last night the energies are quite high in the mental space myself. So yeah. Now let's look at these filament launches. You'll see the first one come out here. It's actually kind of hard to see with the with just where it is on the sun. But there it launches. We get the next one up here. And we see the second one launch. So they're both in these bands there of higher magnetic flux. That's where the sunspots are. And you can kind of see the flare itself that destabilizes the plasma filament a little better by looking at the 131 angstrom wavelength. But you see there's a little bit of a push there. And then up here it shows nicer. There's that flare right there. So these are big plasma filaments. Let me like zoom in specifically on when they launch, so you can kind of see the size of them. They're actually quite large. There's the first one. See the footprint right there? There's one. There's the second limb. I mean, this is after it kind of exploded out, but just look how wide that is. That was a very large plasma filament. And then if we go into this one up top, we see the same factor here. There's the right side, there's the left side, already blasted open at this point. This is a big magnetic flux tube, and effectively it just launches it out. So it breaks, and then all this plasma energy gets launched out. This is the one that's creating that larger plasma density spike according to the NOAA model. But you see there how wide this is, and underneath it is that sunspot group, which did flare. If we look right here, we see that flare there. So it's not just a plasma filament launch, it's also that flare added to that, and that's why the plasma density is higher. We can look at our NASA models. These are two different models, one for the first, one for the second. So I wish they combined these models and created a single model like NOAA does. We did look at that one, but we can look at the NASA model here to see how the solar flare number 1 and then number 2 propagates out. So this one right there, this is the 30th at 1800 UTC time. And then this one's just at the beginning of the impact at 1800 UTC. If we jump forward a little bit, you'll see it's more on December 1st according to NASA. Let's just click this and watch it. And the one thing to also notice, in addition to that flare impact and that flare impact too, is this co-rotating interaction region here. It gets cut off and then it pushes out past the Earth as that second flare passes by. So that's also a third factor at play, just within these models showing increased plasma density, because you get this push of solar wind right there after that second flare. So we have flare 1, flare 2, co-rotating interaction region, plasma push, and then we also have those coronal holes at play. And that can really charge up the planet. This could be a pretty big geomagnetic storm. They're estimating a G2. We'll see what it turns out to be. These geomagnetic storms in general have been stronger in effect on Earth, like on the surface, than these normal scale ratings because of all the magnetic ducts that exist in Earth's atmosphere and ionosphere. So because of all the power grids and the cellular radio towers, and now we have things like Starlink beaming microwaves through the ionosphere, this creates magnetic ducts, kind of these open portals that allow a lot of energy flux in, and that makes the energy precipitation from this stronger at the surface, and therefore the geophysical energies reach deeper into the atmosphere and therefore reach deeper into us. So we can look at our radiation belt model for the past few days to see what's been happening. If we go back to the beginning, we see just right there, we capture it. It goes dark blue. That's from the impact that we had there on the 21st, 22nd. They got dumped. Big ion precipitation event. And then there's November 24th, as time has gone on, they have recharged, slight dumping there, but now they're back up to red, as you'll see. So the radiation belts are well charged. That's what happens after geomagnetic storms, is you usually have an ion precipitation, but then they also have a charging afterwards. So we can see how charged up they are there. They are ready to go. And so when we have this extended geomagnetic storm, expect all these ions to get pushed down into the Earth and further exacerbating any effects that we may have from this geomag storm. So quite a lot happening on our planet. Let's get into the mental health energies and how heightened geophysical energy flux affects mental health. By the way, we'll do a Q&A at the end. So if you have any questions, save them for the Q&A and we'll go through that. But there's different kind of operating systems for the brain. You have the default mode network, which is active when you're not performing a task. So when you're just kind of hanging out, you're chilling, daydreaming, your mind's just wandering around, you're thinking about other people, other things, you're doing thought experiments. That's the default mode network. And you're in the default mode network quite a lot. It's one of the main modes, default mode network. So it's active all the time. And so when we're switching between the default mode network and the central executive network, we go through the salience network, and this is connected to our limbic system, our emotional system, and then the central executive network goes into place, which is when you have a task and you're maintaining attention on this. And now a task doesn't mean just like work or reading or something like that. Like you could see something that emotionally triggers you, let's say, the salience network, it's your limbic system. And then how you decide to react to that emotional stimulus is your central executive network. So having your default mode network is kind of the foundation to all this and will influence what your mental thought patterns are like at that time, which influences to a great degree your emotions, your stress, and your actual physical health. And then it can get filtered through. But the default mode network is active when we're relaxing, when we're sleeping for the most part. And so the brain has these different operating systems it utilizes based on sensory input and what you're doing. So again, when you're not engaged in any definitive activity, the default mode network is activated and its mental grooves are very deep. Those connections and patterns and rhythms of the default mode network are effectively built up from birth. They're not something that, they come online when you're 25. Like you need that from the beginning. So there's a lot of momentum and inertia with it. And with time, things fade out. Maybe you had a very stressful emotional period 6 months ago. It's not affecting you as much anymore, but it leaves an imprint. So there's an immense amount of information stored within the default mode network. And this is more closely linked to theta and delta rhythms, those lower frequency rhythms, which are usually the strongest in the brain, highest power, and the least likely to go away. Like gamma waves are fairly rare, associated with those higher states of consciousness at times. But if you are slowly slipping into unconsciousness, there'll be the lowest frequency waves that are last to stick around. So they're kind of like the ultimate backup in terms of brain waves. And therefore they store a lot of this information. Like they hold on to a lot of that information in their waveform. So when the default mode network is activated and you're not doing much and it's activated all the time, but then it's enhanced with geophysical energy flux from, let's say, a geomagnetic storm, space weather, Schumann burst, even just like a thunderstorm rolling overhead, could be a rainstorm, electrified weather systems, then things get amplified and you can find yourself just kind of going through these mental loops. I speak from experience here. So these mental loops just go, and it can be very, very tiring. This is one of the things that leads to mental fatigue. So then that starts to affect your life and your relationships, and it can go on and on and on. It can really be a big negative influence in your life to have extreme fatigue. And people don't realize, or maybe they just often forget, how much energy is expended by the brain. 20% is energy, but then also like the mental space, the mental body contains so much energy and information, it can be very overwhelming at times. And these geophysical storms can really activate that. Now, the default mode network is shut down when you use psychedelics like psilocybin. So not advocating for it, just saying that is what the research shows. There's other psychedelics that also shut off that default mode network, and that is what allows for interoceptive signals from the body and these more quiet limbic signals to then be consciously processed and worked with. And that's why it's so great for things like PTSD, because that's information stored in the body. That's information stored in these deeper parts of the brain, the default mode network, and you need to reformat the default mode network to do that. So things like psilocybin, They reduce brainwave power in for the most part, the alpha to gamma bands, and that allows these weaker signals to stand taller and to be processed. But you can also reformat the default mode network with certain wellness practices like meditation, self or guided. And guided meditation is really powerful for this. Just make sure you choose a good guided meditation because that's someone else speaking into your ear. Sound healing is amazing because it is just someone playing a flute or the gong or something like that. So it's less tied to any single person. Hypnosis, I haven't done that myself, but that is, of course, a very well-established method of reformatting and healing the brain from certain things and traumas. Biomagnetic therapy, where you have magnets placed on your body, deeply activates the parasympathetic nervous system and really gets you into the default mode network. That was my experience when I did that. Shout out to Lynn. And then also cycling between wake and sleep states. So when you are in REM sleep and then you kind of wake up and then deciding to go back to sleep, that kind of in-between zone, that is also very default mode network. And so when you can just start to consciously modify your thought forms in that state, whether it's through the meditation or the sound healing, whatever, then it can really start to regroove you. Because to create new grooves, you have to stop putting energy in the other grooves, and you have to start, actually carving out the new groove. And you want that new groove, like my opinion, you want that new groove to be very simple. So you could have a default mode network where a lot of the grooves or some of the grooves are just very complex and like, what did this person think? Or I should have done this. Or maybe you have self-worth issues. Like there's a whole bunch of things that can just cycle around in your head over and over and over and over. Whereas a better groove, for example, would just be the one that I use all the time because I think it's probably the most powerful, simple, and effective is just, I am love. We are love. Like the world is love. That's just so simple, and it clears your perspective on everything. Even if things aren't going a certain way in your life, or there's certain relationships that aren't maybe exactly how you may like them, it allows you to let go because you see the larger, grander, unified picture of everything. So when you have these increased energies on the planet due to things like geomagnetic storms, like the one we have coming up November 30th and December 1st, the default mode network can be activated to a greater degree, but because there's more energy in that system, it allows you a better opportunity if you are able to ride those waves, to direct your mental thought forms. It gives you more power to carve those grooves. And so when you're in these states, whether it's the meditation or like cycling between wake sleep states, you may have your thoughts drift. It's almost certain that your thoughts will drift at times, but the key is just to keep bringing them back to your very simple affirmation or statement or mantra, whatever it is. So last night I had this experience. I found myself just ruminating too much. And so I decided not to wake up with like the crack of dawn, which I always have the opportunity. I always wake up at that time. I decided to go back to sleep and kind of engage in the dream realm. But also I just kept repeating in my head, like, we are love, we are love, just cycling that through my head to really start to reformat those grooves, because it gives you such a more positive, optimistic view of the world. And it's much less cynical and much more optimistic. And so I think that's a very powerful thing to do, especially when a lot of media out there is programming and encouraging the opposite of that. So, hey, you may think it sounds silly, but I think it's amazing. So regrooving your default mode network is made easier during increased geophysical energy flux, but it also can be a little bit more difficult. It's just like a bigger, kind of more complex wave to ride, but practice makes perfect. So I recommend that you do that, because no matter what, you're going to have to get through that geomagnetic storm. Unless you blast off to another planet, it's going to happen. You're going to feel it if you're sensitive. So may as well use that opportunity to reformat your default mode network And you could also, if you really want to ride some maverick waves, you could add on some psychedelics like psilocybin to that. But I would only recommend you do that if you have experience, and I'll leave it at that. So one other thing that really helps with promoting this parasympathetic state of activity are these two supplements would be red reishi mushroom and turkey tail mushroom. These ones are actually from my garden. I found them here. But if you don't have access to wild reishi or wild turkey tail, you can get red reishi mushroom extract powder and turkey tail mushroom extract powder from Nootropics Depot. I have a link in the video description. I love these. They're amazing. I mix this into my coffee every morning. It helps the coffee stay nice and smooth and calm without being overstimulating, but it does give me that overall energy boost that I like from coffee. Of course, I like the taste the most. And then red reishi powder here is really, really great right before you go to bed. So like 30 minutes before you go to bed, mix it in with either some tea, like for example, chamomile or passion flower or lavender. There's a whole bunch of parasympathetic enhancing herbal, leaves and different herbs that are great. Red reishi, this powder mixes in really well with that. You could also mix it in with, let's say, like a plant-based protein shake, which would have a bit of a calming parasympathetic effect on you as well. But this will help you get that nice deep sleep. So you can use them together. These are the two supplements I would recommend probably the most of all the different ones I know of that help with this, just because they're so effective. They're a good price. They don't sell them for that much. Like this could be way more expensive through different groups, but they have very high quality, USA based. Check them out. I want to finish up by looking at extreme ultraviolet irradiance from the sun for November and also all the way from August. And so we have our extreme ultraviolet irradiance here, milliwatts per meter squared. And we can see that for, let's go back to November. We can see that from the beginning of November, we were on this downtrend there. Of course, we had spikes and different little plateaus. But overall, irradiance was going down in the extreme ultraviolet band. And that is one of the primary wavelengths of light that the sun emits that ionizes our atmosphere and creates these telluric currents and ionospheric currents and influences the Schumann resonances and much more. So we can see that from the 17th of November, we've had a rapid increase, and now we're holding steady at this new irradiance level that's quite a bit above what was experienced for most of November. So definitely looks like the sun has woken back up, and it's quite a bit stronger than it was during most of November. Now, if we go to October and November, it puts it in perspective again. We see that we had a similar zone of high solar radiance here in the beginning of October, but a big decline there in the extreme ultraviolet light, and then some increases again. Still, those increases here at the beginning of November were less than what we're seeing here, and then a decline again. So it looks like we're on a multi-month uptrend looking at this data. And then if we look at it from August, we see August 23rd there, we see some of these waves and some of the big spikes in irradiance that would be triggered by like a coronal mass ejection or a solar flare. But we see the kind of the waves here, and we see how there's been this lull from October, November, but now it seems that we're having a little bit of a ladder step up in December. We'll see what happens in December. But it looks like the sun's increasing activity still at this moment in time. So this may actually break upwards. Who knows? Maybe it starts a new downtrend, maybe a slow grind up, slow sideways. Like, it's impossible to know, but it does look like we've broken this kind of low energy trend that we were in for October and November, and returning back to some of the more active conditions that we had in August. Any questions you want to ask, please ask them in the chat. Thanks everyone for being here, first and foremost. Love you all. Blessings. I hope you're all feeling good and well. And that just you've had a good full moon, beautiful full moon. We had some clouds here, actually some pretty dark clouds. It's barely snowing, but I was able to see her peek out from the clouds last night. M-class flare happening right now. Maybe I can pull that up. But yeah, please ask some questions if you have them, and I will go through them, and then we'll end this live stream. Oh yeah, okay. So here's the M-class flare. That might go to X-class, folks. Wow. Please, what can I take for fatigue? It's so bad. I need you to help. The red reishi, the turkey tail are really great for that. I would also recommend just chamomile every day, like chamomile tea every day, because Irene, that improves alpha wave activity. If you have fatigue, then you are you're kind of missing that zone to go to higher activity, which is alpha wave is like your launching zone to either go up into beta or down into theta and delta. And if you drink chamomile tea consistently, it'll improve and strengthen your alpha wave activity, and that should kind of remove a lot of the fatigue, or at least make it easier to get active, because you need to start building energy momentum. That's one of the things with chronic fatigue, is that you're so tired all the time that if you do exercise, it's difficult, it fatigues you more, and it's just kind of a difficult equation. But you have to start building momentum again, getting your body used to being active, and then things will get easier and easier. You can start to eat more. Mugwort is good. Yeah, I really like mugwort. It's also great for enhancing dreams. Yeah, chamomile is calming, but it's also, if you're an active person, it can be calming, but if you're fatigued, it can be stimulating. So it's one of these kind of adaptogens in many ways. Let's look at our extreme ultraviolet, where is it? View of the sun, so we can see this flare as it's happening. This should be up to date right here. Can wearing shungite for the first time have side effects? Meg, that's not my experience, though. I definitely crystals. Yeah, there. Oh wow, Earth Direct. Look at that. Right there. That's like perfectly lined up. So this solar storm is going to be even bigger than expected, folks, because that is climbing up the chart really quick. And I mean, if we go back here, look at that. It's going crazy. So yeah, you have to be careful with crystals in regards to dreams. They carry a lot of energy and information, but shungite in general is one that, like, instead of emitting energy, it more like grabs it from your environment. So I think you'd be fine, but try it out. It should help. It should definitely help. And yes, the full moon is very powerful energies from the flares. Been crazy riding the waves. That's good, Patricia. That's all we can do, is we can just learn to ride those waves better. Yeah, best thing to do for your health is not to be confused or to perceive yourself as being powerless. Yeah, you have to be self-empowered. And that just changes in many ways, like your bioelectric signaling from the base. If you just really fully embody like who you are, your gifts, your talents, and just the fact that you can just be. You don't need to do anything else than just be. Chamomile is dehydrating. Perhaps I've never found it dehydrating, but everyone's individual. Let's keep this guy going. Look at this flare that's coming in right now, folks. Infrared sauna. Infrared sauna is great. Just make sure it is not one of these. Infrared saunas emit a lot of EMFs. So a regular sauna is better because that's just regular heat. But infrared saunas use the infrared lights, LEDs, and they have huge EMF flux on them, like massive. So that one reason people like them so much is because that EMF dose is also very activating for the parasympathetic nervous system, because it's a stress response. So the body kind of shuts down. So you feel super relaxed. But that's one thing to be mindful of, is you don't want that big EMF dose. But just the regular sauna is great as long as you just stay in there not too long. You don't want to stay in there too long. Or else that can really activate your stress response system and release too many heat shock proteins. Yes, God is moving things around. There's a lot happening. Any more questions for the Q&A? Back of my skull and neck has lots of discomfort at the moment. Any tips for helping those areas? Well, I think you would have to examine how often you're sitting and your sitting posture. But in general, you can massage the back of your neck and your skull pretty easily with your hands, Fen. And in general, sitting in lotus will promote that good spinal alignment. So this is what I mean. You can sit in meditation in lotus and work on your posture and your spinal alignment, get cerebral spinal fluid flowing really nicely throughout your body up to your brain. During these types of events, stay grounded and then rework that default mode network by repeating a very simple affirmation or mantra. And so now you tackle many things at once. So that could help you with this pain that you have, but then that can also help you to rework your mental space in a beneficial way. Hope you found that helpful. There are videos that help you devise a plan for the amount of salt and electrolytes on a daily basis. Yeah, you can also just do a pinch of like good sea salt into your tea or water. A lot of these electrolyte blends, people drink too much of them and then they experience a lot of GI distress. So that's important to be mindful of that. How is our sun affected by the galactic conditions and its center? Well, that's something that we basically know very little about because we don't have any probes out there measuring this stuff. We can measure the stray galactic cosmic ray that's very powerful, like the one that came in Utah recently. But those are traveling near the speed of light, and we don't get those that often. We can measure energetic neutral atoms that are formed at the boundary of the heliopause. So this is kind of a measurement of interstellar space. We also have Voyager 1 and Voyager 2 there. But in regards to like what's happening like at the center of the galaxy, it's just based on telescope observations. But that's not really giving us a clue as to like what's happening energetically in terms of like plasma fluctuations or changing magnetic field conditions, electric field conditions. So that is something it's hard to comment on, and a lot of people have just made a lot of stuff up in regards to changing galactic conditions. So we really just don't know what we don't know. And yep, I'm just trying to scroll here to get where do I buy the jars of mushrooms you showed earlier? The links are in the video description. They're from Nootropics Depot, Liz. Go check that out. I use them every day. I wouldn't recommend anything I don't use. What could someone take for bipolar and schizophrenia? Well, those would help. I mean, those are medicinal mushrooms. Those will definitely help. But in general, I think probably earthing and grounding would be one of the best things. And then also, there is a lot of evidence showing that things like psilocybin help with that. It can help remediate some of those mental health disorders, problems, whatever you want to call them. So that's something to talk to. You know, perhaps you go to a state. If you're in the United States, you go to like Oregon, and if you want to have like the help of a health practitioner, you could do that legally there. Otherwise, you can research into this and do it yourself. But it's best to do that in a therapeutic clinical setting. I feel like for someone that has bipolar or schizophrenia, because they do bring up a lot of energy. Reiki, I don't have experience with that, but it wouldn't exist if there wasn't something to it. So someone, you could do distant Reiki, you could do in-person Reiki. Do you have any ideas of what our skies might and could look like during the grand flash? Describe what it would and possibly look like. Well, the grand flash is like this idea, first and foremost, this idea that the sun may launch a very powerful solar flare, like bigger than a Carrington event, that it may have a range of expression going from minor solar flares and just, inactivity through Carrington events. Then you have like a micronova, and then a sun could do, let's say, a macronova, like a supernova. So it's certainly, I think the idea of a micronova makes sense. I think the sun probably has ways of expressing itself across the entire spectrum. How often those happen, that's a big question, because we don't have any evidence of that. And then also, is that going to happen? Like, that also is impossible to predict with what we have currently. So let me go back up to your question. What our skies may look like? Well, let's entertain the idea of like some micronova, solar flash, grand flash, whatever. The ionosphere would be extremely charged. We would have crazy weather on our planet, and there would be a big increase of energy flux at the surface, and also probably ground surface, like atmospheric conductivity, would go up because there'd be so many energetic ions blasting into it. So you would see a lot of bioelectric health disruption from that. But in general, just expect a huge electrification of the atmosphere when you have a huge burst of energy coming into the planet. That's just the global electric circuit. I recommend that anyone that's interested in that reads into the global electric circuit. It's hard to see all these questions based on how I scroll this, so just bear with me if I miss your question. I apologize. Let's go back to our X-ray flux and look and see if it's hit X now. It looks like we're just at the edge of an X-class flare there, folks. Right, Earth direct as you see it here. And I'm not seeing any more questions. Dr. John Campbell put the question out, what is the missing variable to explain the 2023 excess death graphs? Well, I think that's probably the vaccines, but there's a lot of things too. I mean, you have people eating poor quality food increasingly. You have more air pollution, more wildfires putting smoke into the air. You have lower quality water. Tap water is loaded with stuff that you don't want to drink. So there's this forcing on all sides for poor health outcomes. No, you're not going to hallucinate off turkey tail. There is no hallucinogenic properties to reishi or turkey tail. They just help you relax. But they're also not going to like literally put you down. They're very mild. But if you let them do their thing and you put yourself into a relaxed state, then you'll find yourself, either going to sleep or having a really nice deep meditation. Nothing will happen to the just and humbled. We hope. Any of you familiar with transcranial magnetic stimulation as a treatment for various health reasons? Well, they just recently did a study pairing TMS with psilocybin, showing that it triggered different activity in the brain than you normally would see. And so it was like this big kind of unknown question mark that got brought up with that. But in general, I'm more of a fan of less intervention, the better. I know you didn't really direct this a question in that direction, but I think the less we play with our soft magnetic, highly magnetic brain tissue, the better. So when you have a thunderstorm roll overhead, that's TMS. That's transcranial magnetic stimulation. When you have a geomagnetic storm, that's TMS. It's just of a lesser, quieter degree. But yeah, I think it's better to not do that. I think it's better to get the brain to a quieter, less enhanced state of energy flux, and then you can start to work with it that way. But there's definitely people have done it, worked on it, and there's something to it. So to each and everyone their own, but I think it's better long term for your cellular health not to mess with those things too much. Is there a reason to live anymore? Yeah, I think there is. Dave, you're welcome. And Don, you're welcome too. When will we feel the effects from the borderline X class? Well, it's probably going to, since it just launched, that should take a few days. So we have 2 plasma filaments. Let me go back to the plasma filaments. Let me do a recap for everyone that's kind of just coming in, okay? We have 2 plasma filaments coming in that launched from the sun on the 27th. The first one is over here. And so those are expected to arrive November 30th, December 1st. The next one's up here. Okay, let's look at that. Boom, 1, 2. Then we have a coronal hole opening up right here. We'll see this come in on the left side of the screen. That is likely to hit the planet, the high-speed stream from that at the same time. Maybe a little bit later, maybe more like December 1st or 2nd. It depends on the velocity of that high-speed stream. So there's that coronal hole right there. And now, like we just we're looking at, we see this X-class flare launch exactly Earth direct, just like right now as this live stream is happening. So that is also going to take probably 2 days at a minimum to reach the planet, unless it's extremely fast. We don't know the velocity on that yet. We won't know until that comes in at the Discover satellite, which is stationed at L1 Lagrange, and there's like a 1 hour lag time with that. So overall, it looks like we have 4 things now directly interacting with us simultaneously. at the beginning of December. So that's why I wanted to talk about, reformatting your default mode network and mental health. So you don't. I just think it's important to stay grounded and clear-headed amongst this, because that's really good for yourself and to stay focused, and also for your relationships and family and all that stuff. Yeah, that's right, Scott. Any last questions? We'll keep the Q&A for any last questions here. Yes, we are love. We are love. Juanita, thank you. Greetings from the Netherlands. Greetings from United States. Right back to you. Long duration flare. It looks to be a fairly long duration flare. Yeah, I can refresh this to see if it's... Let's see what it looks like now. It's been 15 minutes or so. Oh yeah, very long duration flare. And it's looks like it's holding its energy output near this X-class zone. We see it continuing there. So this may be an extended X-class flare. Looks like it's starting to barely go down, but of course we had this second bump there. It may flare again, but so far this is already quite notable. If we go to our 3-day, you see it really nicely there. Wow, I'm glad someone mentioned that. Sometimes I have good timing with these live streams of my videos. I seem to put them out when things happen. Is the veil still thinning? Well, I think in general, this entire time period from like October through November, the veil's kind of thin if you go off of human tradition. But it would start to be strengthening as we get closer to the winter solstice in the northern hemisphere. Dosha, you're welcome. Just an idea. Probably disclose that you're not a professional MD. Yeah. I think that whole thing's stupid as well. Because medical doctors are just... There's so many problems within medical industry. So like to give them any more credit, I feel like is a huge disservice to humanity. But yeah, I'm not a medical doctor, okay? That's probably... I don't know. What's your opinion on that? It may not be what people think, but I just have my own experiences improving my health and wellness, being very introspective and feeling, identifying health conditions. I've been very health conscious for many, many years now. And this is simple advice: drink some chamomile tea, or, look into taking Turkey Tail and Reishi mushroom, which are completely safe. So they'll tell you to drink tap water and close your third eye. And I'm telling you to, I'm recommending that you look into some of these natural herbal supplements. So, hey, yeah, okay. Thank you. Thank you. And gives you more credibility, maybe. Everyone, there's so much out there. I don't know everything. And so there's a lot of things, I wouldn't want to do live surgery. I have no idea how to do that. But in terms of preventative health, I am quite knowledgeable. I've done a lot of research there. So there's a lot more to do. Drink alkaline water. Yeah, clean spring water ideally is really, really good. So if you can find a local spring, get your water from them. Ideally, less contaminated up in the mountains is better. The deeper they draw it from, like in Europe, they'll have a lot of spring water that they sell. Always check the depth of extraction, because some of those springs are fairly shallow. So they could be pulling up things that have drifted down there over time, like PCBs and pesticides and other stuff. But if you get a really deep well or deep spring, then that's really good. Water filters are good too, but you're still working with inherently, let's say you're filtering tap water, you're still kind of like having to pull that stuff out, and energetics is different. Like, have you seen the inside of these pipes? Oh my God. I've never used a Berkey filter. I heard they're really good. But I've also heard problems about people having issues with the filters and everything. And so I just think it's best to go straight to the spring. I have a spring near me that I just actually take a container to, and I fill up and I drink from that. And it's great. So yeah, there's a lot of different ways to do it, but if you have to filter your water, Berkey seems to be one of the best, but I haven't used it myself. Is there a spring in Napa? There's a bunch of springs there, yeah, but it's more up in like the Emerald Hills. I'm not sure if you're from Napa, Theta. That's where I grew up, by the way. Hi. But is there a spring? Yeah, there's plenty of springs there. It's kind of expensive, though. I looked up the spring water from Napa, and I was kind of blown away how much it was per gallon. Crystal Geyser, though. Crystal Geyser water is great. Super good. And that's just further north. So, yeah, you could check that out. I mean, you know Crystal Geyser. Please check on loved ones during these events. Yeah, you don't know how people will be feeling. I know that I've been seeing some heightened emotions in just my personal sphere with people I know and enhanced mental energies myself. So you don't know what someone is going through. And yeah, you know, it's good to check in on people compassionately. Fasting and meditation, that's really good. That's a really good combo. Thanks for mentioning that because, yeah, fasting, just by removing food from the system, if you are in a state where you can fast and it's working for you, perhaps you have a little bit of extra body fat, makes it really easy. Just, you know, make sure you add some sea salt to your water every day. Herbal teas also will contain those electrolytes. But the fasting, by reducing energy coming into your body, that also just clears a lot of these different biochemical reactions and metabolic things are happening and helps you to kind of have a cleaner mental space, I find. So then you combine that with the meditation, it's really, really good. So yeah, thanks for mentioning that. Will these flares cause earthquakes or volcanic eruptions? They definitely have a connection to earthquakes, but it's less flares and coronal mass ejections that are linked with earthquakes. It's more coronal holes. So we can go back here. These guys right there, those are linked with giant earthquakes. And specifically on the descending end of a solar cycle, when you have coronal holes and you've already had like 3-4 years of energy loading and forcing by the sun, then you have these giant earthquakes. At least that's been what's been observed statistically with past data. How about the water from fresh green coconuts? That's amazing. That's some of the best stuff. Absolutely. So if you have access to coconuts, it's perfectly hydrating, lots of potassium, really, really, really good for you. You don't need to put Crystal Geyser through a Berkey. That stuff's so good. It's so tasty. I love Crystal Geyser. The only problem is it's, you know, packaged in plastic. That's the worst part. But you could also go to Whole Foods. They have a really good water dispenser at Whole Foods, Data. So they have, you can make it alkaline or just do a normal water filter, but then bring your own containers and do that. And yeah, that's what I do when I'm in Napa, is I use the Whole Foods water. It's in the back left corner, okay? Do you think that if a person's skin tends towards inflammation and eczema, rashes during solar flares, could dehydration possibly be the only cause, or is it wishful thinking on that one? That's typically, any sort of skin inflammation typically is related to a food intolerance. That's not always the case, but often there's something entering into your bloodstream through your digestive tract that your immune system doesn't like. And as a result, it then pushes that out and inflames your skin to kind of get rid of it. Because your skin is your largest organ, and it's easy to detox through the skin. So often skin issues, if it's not like acne and things, that's often hormonal. But if you're having inflammation and eczema or psoriasis, things of that nature, that's often linked to your diet. So you may want to do an elimination diet. That almost certainly will help with your skin problems. And then during the reintroduction phase, you may find what that trigger food is. That's often the case. That's not always the case, but that's often the case. So give that a try. 6-week elimination diet. Again, not a medical doctor, but this is just basic diet manipulation and seeing what foods cause problems. And then, you know, that's very, very powerful. I've done elimination diets and it's been very, very informative. It's always really good. But yeah, the skin is always showing something out of balance inside. And some people just have certain things that are closer or easier to imbalance than others. I mean, just because one person has skin inflammation doesn't mean that someone else doesn't have some other thing in their body that's closer to being imbalanced. So, yeah, it's just in general, that may be your thing. But that's one of the nice things about skin problems is that they're so obvious. Like, it's worse to have some internal problem that you have really no warning signs or symptoms of, but the skin will tell you right away. So if you pay attention to that signal, you get a gut health log and a diet journal, and you get it all correlated, then you can figure that problem out 9 times out of 10. Any last questions? Aloe vera is great for the skin. I use it every night. Really moisturizing. And what it does is actually dries and forms a film over your skin. So while it's not like actively moisturizing at that point in time, it's creating a protective layer that keeps the moisture in. So a lot of people will be like, aloe vera is not moisturizing once it dries, but it's keeping your skin naturally moisturized by forming that protective layer. Put it on at night and then wash off in the morning. Really, really good. Have you followed the work of GOS channel on YouTube? Yeah, he's cool. I emailed him when he first had that video that did well, and he got back to me and we talked a little bit. I think there's a lot with planetary conjunctions and geometry. He specifically looked at how when certain planetary alignments are in the fire sign, specifically Leo, Uranus and Leo seems to be linked to large earthquakes based on his analysis of like 1,000 years of data. It's one of his older videos. I recommend you check that out. There seems to be certain planetary geometries that trigger earthquakes. I play with that a little bit. I'm still very novice in my understanding, but I feel like it's not a big issue to bring some of these things up just to have so people have a forewarning. But there's so much work that needs to be done there. And his predictions aren't right all the time, but sometimes he does get it. Earthquake prediction in general is not easy. And a lot of it is also influenced by you make a prediction and then like small quakes happen all the time. So if you predict an earthquake in an area, but a small quake occurs, well, I mean, that's kind of always happening. So it's really like getting the magnitude right that's important. And I can't say that I'm good at it. I can't say really that anyone's good at it. I know maybe I'll get some pushback on that, but with time and better data analysis and more data feeds and machine learning analysis and everything on that data, I think we can get earthquake forecasting down pretty pat. But as maybe there's some savants out there, but I think a lot of it's also kind of like, again, without going into it more. Any last questions? Space Weather Live is a great app. Spaceweather.com is really good too. Just spaceweather.com, they're really good. What about drinking aloe vera? Yeah, drink it as long as it doesn't have added sugar. Most of the drinks have a ton of added sugar. Direct X class flare. Anyone that's joining in right now, we have 333 concurrent viewers. Thank you all so much for being part of this live stream. But yeah, direct X class right there. You won't see this on the SDO website because they have a lag time. So this is direct from NOAA's, and then you go to products and data if you want to see this yourself. And then you go down to GOES Ultraviolet Imager, SUVI, and that will show you this. X-ray flux is what I typically go to first to see if we get a flare. There's our flare right there. Just tap the top of the X-class rating, but it is Earth direct, which makes it very, very powerful because it's sending that directly to us. And it's near the equator too. Let's look at it at 304 angstroms. We'll load this really quick. Wow, Parrish, thank you so much. God bless. Much love. That's amazing. You set the bar. This all goes back into improving. Like, I took a leap of faith on my YouTube channel and this whole business. So every dollar I get, except the ones that go towards food, basically, and I eat simple, go towards improving my ability to do these sort of live streams, to improving, like giving myself the ability to write and research and not have any sort of like central commander or like 9-to-5 job that stops me from doing that. And then this is also with enough funds and they're building up, I'll be able to buy some geophysical gear and actually report on this directly with my own gear from different locations. I want to build out a network of simple geophysical sensors It will happen. The first sensors will be picked up soon. I hope to put them in Utah. So yeah, every dollar goes towards that, basically, except for the beans and rice and eggs that I eat. So, and yeah, good food is very, very important. What up, Virgo friend? Thanks for the shout out, Light Bean Love. That's very nice of you. Yeah, we're all in this together. I think that's really important, and it's important that we stay grounded with certain factual information, data that is independently corroborated from across the world by thousands of people, like what's happening on our sun. I mean, there's lots of telescopes pointed up at the sky. And then I think it's also important to be mindful of some of the things that we don't know or we just have hints of, and that's more on the spiritual side, the metaphysics side. So that's why I really like to start with like what's actually happening based on what we can see, independently verified, and then how this may affect some of these more metaphysical dimensions of reality. That's effectively my channel. I think I'm going to end the stream here. Right about the 1 hour mark. So thank you all so much for tuning in today. Yes, we have a big X-class flare right now. I mean, it's right at the edge of an X-class. It's crazy. So that's after 2 plasma filament launches and a coronal hole. You see the outline right there. So we have a big solar shakeup for the next week or so. Wow, Jody, 1999. I like nines. Thank you so much. That's amazing. So yeah, we have just a lot happening. I'm happy to provide you this information, to do this live stream for you. It looks like we caught this one in time. It happened during the live stream. So yeah, I will keep you up to date on all these things as they happen. So if you would like to see that, please subscribe and like the video so it gets recommended in your home screen. And just a note, I don't report on every single thing that happens. I just report on kind of the big things. And sometimes I wait to see how things will evolve. So if I don't put out something like on those plasma filaments yesterday, then you may expect to see something the next day, because that's when that coronal hole opened up. So it adds and creates a more complex story. So yeah, I update when things reach a critical value, you could say. So you know that if I make a video, it's only going to be really relevant and not kind of stretching things. At least that's what I try to stick to. So yes, much love, blessings, love all the hearts and 100s that you're sending in the live chat. Hope that you've had a fun time here. And wow, some 2431111, amazing. I love it. I love 11s. We had the 1111 portal recently. That was really cool. I love Euros too, by the way. I will save that for when I'm back in Europe. And so yeah, just really blessed to have you all part of this team, and we passed 50K recently, which was amazing. So onwards to the next Fibonacci number, and then to 100K. Troy, thank you so much. God bless. You're always the first comment. I love it. Alana, all of you, Vibrant Light, Renee, Fen, thank you so much. More Euros. God bless. God bless. And I just really hope that you stay grounded over the next few days. Just less, almost more so for others, because by watching this live stream, you are aware of what's happening. You have the heads up. Same with like astrology, you have the heads up. But there's a lot of people that aren't tuning their, Charlotte, thank you so much. There's a lot of people that aren't tuning their direction there. And so they may act more unconsciously on these energies. So I like that. Was that a thumbs up bird? A little thumbs up chicken? I like it. Thank you, Charlotte, so much. So by being on top and appraised of this allows you to be more conscious of it, and almost more so for others than for yourself. I think it's really useful to stay grounded, clear, and calm. So I hope you found the info on, I'll go back to that just to finish the slide off, the stream off there. I hope you found the info on the heightened geophysical energy and how that affects mental health useful. Again, it's promoting that theta and delta activity, default mode network. Rework your default mode network with parasympathetic nervous system stimulating activities like meditation, sound healing, biomagnetic therapy, cycling between REM sleep and lightly awake sleep, and create or find a very simple mantra or affirmation. I use the Russian version of "We Are Love," which is "Muy есть любовь." So "Muy есть любовь," but that's just because I'm practicing Russian too. But bake that into your default mode network. So when things get squirrely, when things get like heightened, more activated, there's only one groove that energy goes along. It's the most compassionate, forward-looking, loving groove that there is. It's not this one that's, turning back in on yourself in any sort of critical way or looking at others critically or judgmentally. So, yeah. Love you all. God bless. I'll see you in the next one.